everyone. Welcome into Hog Zone with Locked On. I'm Robyn Hearn here with Locked On host John Nabors. John, we have a lot to talk about with the Razorbacks not being able to convert against the Tennessee Volunteers today. So, John, just take me a little bit about what did you see from the Razorbacks today?
Well, I think it was big on about the effort, because last time we saw the Razorbacks against Notre Dame, they weren't exactly putting forth the effort. I think Sam Pittman even talked about that, and they had 2 weeks to prepare. And, you go on the road against a top 10 team. What were you going to do with it? Are you just going to lay down and die, or are you going to fight for something? They at least showed fight. I know they still lost the game, but I wanted to see effort. I think a lot of Razorback fans wanted to see that effort, and they gave it their all. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and it also, it came down to really those turnovers, those 3 pivotal turnovers. They're from also Taylor Green and Braylon Russell. It just wasn't what you were hoping to see from the offense that's actually been pretty good on turnovers this entire year so far. What did you see from them in that sense?
Yeah, it's just really frustrating to where you wish you could just say, hey, coach, show that drill that you do to not fumble the ball. Mm-hmm. It's kind of one of those things to where, is it simply ball security? Is it simply just not having the mental capacity for what is it causing it? And it's really frustrating because you saw some times where they were moving the ball really well, especially that Braylon Russell fumble, which was just brutal. And it ends up costing you. And you can't have those types of mistakes if you want to beat a team like this. And it's just frustrating because it's just like, what do you do? What does the coach do? What does the player do? Sometimes those things just happen. It's just unfortunate because Arkansas needs some of those turnovers to go their way.
Right.
But Tennessee didn't turn the ball over, and usually you lose the game when you lose the turnover battle.
Exactly. And that's something that they've been talking about all year long, especially into fall camp, was winning the turnover battle, even doing those drills like you mentioned. They did a lot of those in fall camp. So it was unfortunate to see that. And then also Coach Bobby Petrino, interim head coach, talked a little bit about how he wanted to go for that field goal, but he opted not to, and it kind of came back and bit them in the butt a little bit. But do you think it was more the turnovers or maybe that misplay right there where he didn't go for it for the field goal that kind of came down to this one?
Well, to me, one of those misplays is just a matter of, hey, if it works out, it's the greatest play call of all time.
Right.
But if it doesn't work, then it ends up being brutal. And because you lost the game by 3 points, that's what ends up being the problem. So I think it's more of just about the fumbles, because, again, that one play, that one decision, you still had time to make up for it. And I know that 2 of the fumbles that Arkansas had ended up leading to 3 and outs by Tennessee, but one of those ended up being the case. And you just feel like you get deflated. It really impacts you in a negative way. So even though, like, on the field and the stat sheet, it may not have had the impact on you as much as it did the psyche of you, especially when it's your quarterback, Taylor Green. So I think just the small little mistakes, once again, compile up. Ends up being the difference in the game.
Exactly. And you said about the stats, talking more about those stats there, Arkansas putting up almost 500 yards total, which is something that they've done a lot of, but really, like you see there, the turnover, they lost that battle. Taylor Green almost having 260 yards there, 2 touchdowns in the air. Mike Washington having himself another great day. It's actually his 5th 100-yard game in his career, 2nd time as a Hog. But as you all see there for Tennessee, Aguilar did really well, and then Deshaun Bishop, he really was the thorn in the side for Arkansas's defense today, even though he did go down a little bit there. But, when you look at those numbers, and Arkansas obviously on the plus side of that, does it give you any positive vibes moving forward for the team? Even though the defense also gave up quite a bit.
The defense is what it is.
Right.
You're not just going to magically get better as the season goes on. And obviously, you fired the entire defensive coaching staff. I don't think anybody can expect this team to go from where they're statistically ranked 16th, dead last in the SEC, to suddenly being middle of the pack. But can they get to 14th in the SEC?
Right.
I think that is possible. And I know that the numbers and everything there, but if you would have told me that Arkansas was going to hold Tennessee to less than 40 points, which is what they've been averaging. Again, they scored 40 points against Georgia. They scored 40 points against Mississippi State. Again, not about moral victories, but they definitely did a lot better than I think that they've shown. Does that mean it's going to continue to improve? Time will tell. But considering how good of an offense Tennessee was, I think Arkansas did a pretty good job, all things considered.
I know, and that defense actually did much better than what I think a lot of us were expecting, especially after that Notre Dame game where they gave up over 600 total yards, 420 of those just in the first half alone. So, honestly, Arkansas's defense need to tip their hat to them, especially with all the changes that they've made the past couple of weeks. And to be able to see that on the field today was really impressive. And Steven Dix had 11 tackles today, which is something you want to see, especially from your captain. Now, speaking more about the defense, What stood out to you the most about them today?
I think it was just a matter of, Bobby Petrino talked about all week long, really in 2 weeks, about the stance, about where the eyes are going, about the simple things that they needed to do, which sounds so cliche. And you're like, oh, so what, these guys just never got taught where to stand? It sounds so lame, but it's the simple things like that. And I think that Arkansas, there were times you could see that they had some big plays that were given up. They still are not a great defense. Like, we need to establish that. But can you just do the small things to where it does make a difference? We saw some great plays on the ball by the secondary. We saw the defensive line, do a good job of stopping the run, but they still can't rush the passer. And if you can't get after the quarterback and you let a great quarterback like Aguilar stand back there, you're going to have issues. So it's a matter of, can you just handle the things that you can control? Can you just do the little bitty things? I don't know if it's going to continue on, but I just felt like they were at least playing harder. I felt like the tackling was better, and I felt like that they were at least in better position. Still wasn't good enough, still needs a lot of work, but I think it was, again, good enough, all things considered.
And that's something that Bob Petrino talked about in his postgame today, about how they were playing together. Even Steven Dix said it in his postgame that they were a better unit. They had better communication today, which we didn't get to see a lot of in the last few games, especially in that Ole Miss game and obviously in that Notre Dame loss. So today, like I said, you kind of tip your hat to them. It looked better, at least from the naked eye, it looked better. I don't know what the tape, what they're going to see from there, but you also talk about pressure. So Arkansas didn't have too much pressure against Tennessee's offensive line, but Tennessee's defensive line had plenty of pressure against Arkansas's O-line.
Yeah, it felt like the offensive line for Arkansas did such a great job in the first half, not only being able to protect Talon, but opening up holes for Mike Washington. I mean, you read off the stats. One of the reasons he had such success is because the offensive line was giving him those opportunities. But then in the second half, I don't know what exactly changed, but something maybe the Tennessee defensive line did, or what, but they were getting so much pressure off the edge. And even during the game, I saw that they had switched Corey Robinson over to the other tackle spot. I didn't know if it was because Marion Harris was hurt or maybe they're just trying to do something different. But that pressure was really, really causing some issues. And I think that's why in the third quarter, Arkansas didn't score any points. I know you got to do better things. You got to play better. But Talon, he's a great quarterback and he's very athletic. But, when you got Tennessee, who is one of the best teams in sacks when it comes to the SEC, you got to protect him a little bit better. And I feel like you got to give kudos to Tennessee because I just feel like they found something in that offensive line that they were able to take advantage of.
Yeah, 5 sacks on the night. That's not what you want to see, especially for an offensive line that has done so well with protecting Talon so far this year. So hopefully against Texas A&M next week, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. They can kind of get back on track and get back to how they were playing, especially because, like you said, that third quarter, Arkansas's offense didn't really do much. Now, they were able to get things back going in the fourth quarter, but Bob Petrino talked about it the past couple of weeks on how he is wanting them to move the ball better in the second half, and that did not start off well, but it ended well. So as we put a bow on this before we move on and move forward to the next page, what are you hoping that Arkansas fans take away from this game?
Well, I'm hoping that it means that the team you're welcoming in next week, Texas A&M, is a really good team. It's going to be an afternoon game. You're honoring Darren McFadden, the greatest Razorback of all time. I'm hoping that built some confidence in the fan base of saying, hey, yes, you would have liked to have won. Yes, it was another one possession loss, but this team's still fighting for something. So let's go out there and let's see how it goes. And could you beat A&M? Maybe. But I think it's just giving some hope that this team hasn't mailed it in. They're not throwing in the towel. Hopefully the fans don't either. Hopefully it ends up being a great atmosphere over there in Fayetteville because I think it deserves it. The weather's going to be great. And if all it takes is just that one. If they find a way to just get that one win, I think it really opens up the floodgates and makes this team so much more confident heading down the stretch.
Yeah, and it's going to be great because now that A&M game not happening down in Jerry's World is actually going to be here at home, and I know Arkansas fans are looking forward to that. And we're going to bring in Tyler Cass and Nick Luttrell a little bit later after the break, and we have plenty more to talk about to break down with this game and even move ahead and look forward to that Texas A&M game. That's going to be pretty crazy. 2:30. Can't wait to see about that one. We'll be right back.
As an Arkansas sports guy, people often ask me why I talk so much about the Bet Saracen sports betting app. The answer? Of the 3 apps available in our state, Bet Saracen is clearly the best one. There's no doubt about it. In fact, when it comes to all things sports betting, it's as great as anything when it comes to winning the money, getting the specials, and doing it the best way possible. That's why I always use the Bet Saracen app. It's Arkansas's #1 sports betting app. here in the state of Arkansas, it's Bet Saracen.
Well, thank you so much for that one, John. We're going to actually bring in our team down in Little Rock, guys. You guys look great there in your Arkansas red.
Thank you, Robyn. Yeah, and believe it or not, this wasn't planned. We just happen to show up like this every Saturday in the fall. Who knows?
Yeah, the red just matches, I guess.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Now, as far as the Arkansas game we just witnessed, yeah, certainly seeing red with anger with some of the similarities, I think, between how they lost this game versus how they keep losing games.
Yeah.
Some good things as well, though. I think that if this was the team we saw against Notre Dame, this game would have been an absolute blowout. So kudos to Bobby Petrino for at least lighting some kind of fire under a team that had clearly quit under the previous administration.
Yeah, here's my whole thing on this game. If that Notre Dame game didn't happen, or if that Notre Dame game was like a one-touchdown loss, this would have been really frustrating tonight. But because of that Notre Dame game and just a little bye week and a lot of changes, then Arkansas gives itself an excuse, basically, to say, okay, this is a new regime under by Petrino. They fired all the defensive coordinators. They're playing a really good Tennessee team. It gives them that excuse. I think it's a valid excuse. But it is kind of funny to think about. If this thing would have happened a few weeks ago, it would have been like, same story. This thing keeps happening with Sam Pittman. Well, now it happened with Bobby Petrino. So who's really the problem? Is it just a curse with the Arkansas football program? Is it Sam Pittman's fault? The biggest thing, though, with the changes and with the coaching changes is the effort. And so when you think about, was this a good decision to let Sam Pittman go? The answer is probably yes. And it's definitely yes when you think about the effort that Arkansas put in. The effort that they put in versus Notre Dame when they looked like they didn't want to be there and they didn't want to play for their head coach, and so he got fired. And now the effort that they're putting up because maybe they're sad that he got fired or maybe they really like this Bobby Petrino guy. So I think it's just a lot of different ways to look at it, I guess.
Right. I think it ultimately turns into a case of they are who we thought they were. It doesn't matter who the head coach is, apparently. Arkansas is going to fumble the ball in key moments in the second half. And I guess you can't coach ball security these days, or at least not with this Arkansas team. And we saw, the defense held Tennessee to their lowest first half output all season long, tied with 17 points against Mississippi State last week. But including all that, Tennessee was averaging over 30 points a game in the first half. And Arkansas's defense held until they couldn't anymore at the end of that fourth quarter. And some of that, I think, is the second half woes, especially in the third quarter of the offense. We saw Mike Washington 100 yards in the first half, just 31 in the second. And Washington even said after the game, if they hadn't come out so flat in that third quarter, things might have ended differently. But even under Sam Pittman, when Bobby Petrino was the offensive coordinator in charge of the offense, they keep coming out flat in the third quarter, and there was no change in that today.
Yeah, there's something wrong with what they're doing at halftime, because we've seen it in multiple games now where, Notre Dame, they were okay in the first half, but obviously they're struggling in the second half. They're struggling, especially in the third quarter and just down the stretch. I mean, in this game, they played so much better in the fourth quarter, but it was too late. When they realized, oh, hey, we're down by 17, let's actually put some good things together here. It was too late, and some bad clock management down the stretch. That's what it leads to. It leads to losses like this, losses that you have a chance to win. That Tennessee gives you opportunities to hang around in this game and to win, but you don't.
Yeah, we'll see, of course, going forward. You guys talked about it a little bit at the end there. A Texas A&M team that comes in, maybe the best team that Arkansas has played so far. They're going to be undefeated. They beat Florida today. And, John, you mentioned it. Afternoon game, Darren McFadden's ceremony beforehand. I do think that the crowd will be there from the start, but to some extent at least. But we saw that in the Notre Dame game. The crowd could be there from the start. You got to keep them there in the second half, guys.
Exactly. Now, guys, I have a question for you. You talked a little bit about, the positive vibe from the defense. What are you hoping to see from them now from here on out, and obviously as they take on a very explosive Texas A&M team coming in here?
Well, from the defense, I want to see essentially what they did today, I feel like, because I don't think that they've proven that they're capable of more than that, but it was certainly better. I mean, especially that first half, we saw a lot of bending where in the first few weeks they would have broken. Yeah. When Arkansas turned the ball over until the end, they had managed to, hold Tennessee without inflicting too much damage. The defense of the first few weeks, it's probably not 17-17 at halftime. It's 28-17 or something even worse. I think at this point, there's no more waiting. We've seen enough. We know what this defense is probably capable of. But just 34 points to Tennessee, an offense that is just so explosive. That's pretty much what we need to see from them going forward. Just enough for where the offense can, if they clean up the turnovers, kind of get over that hump and maybe win a football game.
I think it'll be also interesting to see what Tennessee does the rest of the year, because this game last year, Tennessee came into Razorback Stadium. We thought they were one of the best teams in the country because they looked like they were, and then they just put up a pitiful performance against an Arkansas defense that wasn't that good last year. And then it turned out to be Tennessee was not as good as people thought they were, as far as offensively and maybe defensively a little bit. So I wonder if that same thing happens this year, where they have a really good start to the offensive year, do the Volunteers, and then they just kind of go downhill after that because of the Arkansas game. And it's a win for Tennessee, to take this just briefly from the Tennessee perspective. It's a win for Tennessee, but you can't be feeling great as a Tennessee fan after only beating a kind of bad Arkansas team by 3 points.
Yeah, maybe a little weight off their chest. Tennessee hadn't beaten Arkansas since 2007. They get to, throw that back in Arkansas fans' faces, I guess. But really for Tennessee, it's a streak that should have ended last year. Arkansas picking up that big win. Couldn't quite do it today.
Now, as we look at Bob Petrino's first game as interim head coach, how would you guys grade it on a scale of A to F?
Oh, man, the grade for Bobby Petrino is so tough because the hand he was dealt to some extent. I'm going to go B minus. I think, again, just from the Notre Dame game to now, clearly this is a team that has bought in again. Like I said earlier, if the same, try and effort from the Notre Dame game had shown up today, this game would have been a 50-point blowout. He clearly has the team buying in. We know the whole, no one's in the transfer portal, as much as that might do him now, yada, yada. They're clearly some fire under them. But at the same time, Nick, you brought this up earlier, we saw so many of the same mistakes, especially in the offensive end, which he's been in charge of all season long. If you took this exact same game and it was played week 3 or week 4 with Sam Pittman in charge, I think everyone would be saying, hey, once again, in a one-score game, you see the stats almost favor Arkansas, or even in so many places, it comes down to coaching. So I don't let Bobby off the hook so much because the stats are pretty equal. Arkansas in front of a lot of categories, so some stuff does come down to coaching. But I will give him credit for especially how the defense played in the first half and just how the team as a whole managed to keep fighting.
Yeah, if I had to give him a grade, I'd go a little bit better than that. I think I might hit the A range. I think I maybe go A minus. I think I think
I can't give an A for a loss.
I know. It's his first game, though, as an interim head coach, and we saw so much improvements from last week. And maybe Notre Dame is really good, maybe Tennessee doesn't end up being that good, and they had a bye week to prepare for this, but there's just been so much chaos going on the past 2 weeks with the Arkansas football program, and for him to get them ready to go and ready for this game, that says a lot about what he did. And yeah, I know there's some negatives there with Taylon Green and him fumbling the ball twice and just the issues that he has. And this is maybe how I've always been. This is who I am at heart, is just trusting the coaches and that they're actually teaching them to hold on to the ball and practice like that. Maybe they don't, but I have a tendency to trust that they do.
I'd say you're less cynical because you haven't been doing this as long, but you've been a Razorback fan your whole life, so you've seen it all.
I've seen it all. This is true. I've seen a lot of chaos, but what I saw today was a team that fought, and I feel like Bobby Petrino helped them get there.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We have plenty more to talk about after the break, but I love your grades there. If I want a teacher, I'm going to go with Nick. I'm so sorry, Tyler. But we'll be right back. We're going to have some closing thoughts and look ahead to next week. Welcome back to Hog Zone with Locked On. And John, as we wrap up this game, this Tennessee loss that felt bad, but honestly, you're gave Bobby whatever he was able to give the team. What would you give Bobby Petrino's interim head coach, his kind of debut-ish again with the Razorbacks?
Yeah, I was kind of with Tyler. I don't know if I can give him an A because they did lose the game, but I am going to give him a B because I try to look at it through the lens of you took over a situation where the head coach gets fired and you have to fire the entire defensive coaching staff and you have 2 weeks to get ready for a team like Tennessee on the road and you are preparing for it with bringing in these new guys that these kids don't even know to help on defense, and you do that. I mean, again, it could have been so much worse, and they could have just mailed it in and not even cared. But I got to give a lot of credit to Petrino for kind of taking it all by the horns and making something out of nothing. Again, I know they lost. I know that's not what is the end game, and he even doesn't want to lose the game. But I think as good as you could ask in that situation, I'm giving him a B.
I mean, honestly, that's the best grade to kind of give him, especially like you said, with the hand that he was dealt and what he was given. But with the way this team played, you can tell that the effort and the vibes are probably much better in the locker room right now. You're going to need that as they turn the page now to Texas A&M, who just took down Florida at home this evening. So hopefully Arkansas can keep that up, especially in front of the home crowd. So what are you hoping to see from Arkansas as they do go ahead and go against the Aggies next week?
I'm hoping they can build some sort of confidence from that game against Tennessee. Again, I know you lost, but you did some good things, and you didn't give up. You looked like a completely different team than what you did against Notre Dame. Hopefully they say, hey, we can still win some games. We can still do these things. We just got to shore up the mistakes, and we can beat a team like Texas A&M. And I'm hoping that because of that, because it's in front of the home crowd, because of all the circumstance surrounding it, and also, let's be honest, Bobby Petrino's, he's on an audition tape right now. He's trying to get this job. He can't do it going 0-7. He's not going to get the job doing that. So he needs to get up with some wins. And I'm just hoping that they can just build from that and say, hey, you know, things have been really rough. It's not been fun with all the changes, but we're still a good team. We can still do some things. We're this close to doing it. We just got to shore up the mistakes, and we can find ways to win.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, you know, he is auditioning to hopefully be the head coach of Arkansas football program once again. Now, after you see today's game, are there any games that you see coming up for the rest of the schedule where you're like, those might be winnable for the team that was put out today?
Honestly, I think Auburn, it might be the one because they can't score, but they have a great defense. But Arkansas's kind of biggest thing is that they can't stop any offense, but their offense has been able to be successful. So I think an Auburn is a good matchup. Mississippi State is still one of those games to where you can take care of business, especially since it's at home, and if you're riding off of some momentum from getting a win. You know, at Texas, I don't really know what to make of them sometimes. I mean, they look great today, but they haven't looked good all season long. LSU looks very suspect. Missouri's still good. So the thing is I'm not saying there's a bunch of wins, but I see a bunch of teams that I could see Arkansas beating if they just stop making the mistakes and play their game. I still see a couple wins on this schedule.
Well, hopefully they can stop that turnover stuff because we don't need exactly what they did today. 3 turnovers is not good, but they take on Texas A&M next week here at Razorback Stadium, 2:30 on ESPN. And don't worry, guys, we're going to continue to recap that one, so make sure you're joining us after that game here on 5 News as we will take it, break it down, and look to ahead for the rest of the schedule. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hope you guys have a great night.